The mic squealed just as she tapped it twice. Everyone turned toward the stage, mid-bite, mid-drink, mid-laughter. Conversations froze. Her heels clicked softly against the wood as she stepped up to the platform beneath the string lights. Then came her voice, crisp, unshaken, and far too calm for the words that would follow. "Before I say anything," she began, "just know, I didn't plan to do this tonight." She looked around the room. My coworkers, her parents, a few neighbors, my college bandmate who once threw up on our couch, all of them smiling, half drunk on cheap champagne and nostalgia. I remember one woman whispering, "Oh, this is going to be good," as she leaned in closer with a breadstick in hand. But the truth, my wife continued, has been waiting too long. And frankly, I'm tired of watching him pretend. She didn't say my name. She didn't have to. The DJ, who had been queuing up some classic Hall & Oates, slowly lowered the volume until all I could hear was the fizz of soda and the creak of someone's chair. "Tonight is supposed to be a celebration," she said, her tone never once breaking. "And it is. Just not the one you all expected." That's when she pulled out the envelope. A thick, yellow one. From the manila drawer we always kept locked. She raised it in the air like a prop in a play. "These," she said, "are the things I was never supposed to find. Text messages. Receipts. A note tucked in his glove box with someone else's lipstick still on it. He told me it was from a prank, that his friend left it as a joke. But she signed her name." The room let out a collective breath, as if it had been holding it for years. I wanted to say something, anything, but my throat was dry, my hands frozen at my sides like they'd forgotten how to move. "And I forgave him," she continued. "I let it go. I chalked it up to one mistake." She took a long pause, then smiled. "But then I realized, he's not stupid. He's not careless. He's strategic." The room was silent except for the occasional clink of ice in a glass. She pointed the mic at me. "So tell me, Mason, should I read them? Or do you want to explain why you were texting her again last week? On our anniversary?" I don't remember standing up. I don't remember knocking over my chair. But I remember the sound of the mic still echoing as I walked past her, out the side door, into the cold, with my shirt sticking to my back and a sick taste in my mouth that hasn't left since. I didn't walk home. I didn't drive either. I just wandered. Down the street, past the taco place where we had our first date, past the pharmacy where she once held my hand when I passed out from a flu shot. My legs were moving, but I wasn't really in them. It's like I was floating above myself, watching this whole disaster unfold from the outside. And it was humiliating. I should have said something. I should have defended myself, right? But what do you say when your wife exposes you in front of 50 people and drops a nuclear bomb with perfect posture and a glass of Prosecco in her hand? She was wrong about one thing, though. I wasn't strategic. I was just tired. Tired of feeling like a walking disappointment. Tired of being talked to like I was some man-child she was stuck raising. I made mistakes. Yes, I texted someone I shouldn't have, but it wasn't what she thought. And it wasn't recent. That note in the glove box? It was real, but it wasn't from last week. It was from last year. From a woman I never even kissed. Her name was Riley, and she worked at the bakery I used to stop at every Friday after therapy. She liked 80s music. She asked about my day. She called me Maze, which made me feel like someone easier to like. It was dumb and selfish and sad, but it was mine. A piece of affection that didn't come with a sigh or a lecture. The note had one line on it, scrawled in blue pen. "If you ever feel like starting over, text me. No pressure. R." I never texted her. I swear on everything. I folded it and shoved it into the glove box and tried to forget it existed. But of course, Mallory found it. She finds everything. The queen of controlled chaos. She once figured out I was lying about a surprise gift just because I left the gift bag under the bed with the receipt still inside. I'm not slick. I never was. I sat at the edge of a fountain, my phone buzzing every few minutes. First a call from my mom. Then Matt. Then blocked number. Probably Mallory. I didn't answer. I didn't want more words. I just wanted silence. Or maybe I wanted to disappear into the sound of the water splashing. Eventually, I went back to the car. The lights were still on at the venue. Through the tinted windows, I saw silhouettes dancing. Someone was still playing music. The banner that read, "Cheers T.O. Glenn," had been replaced with another one, taped sloppily over it in red marker. Good luck, Mason. I don't know who did that, but it broke me in a way I didn't expect. Not because of the message, Because someone had that ready. Like this whole thing was premeditated. Like they knew she was going to ruin me tonight, and just wanted to make it festive. And maybe the worst part? No one chased after me. Not one person. I didn't go home that night. I couldn't. I ended up sleeping in my car outside an all-night diner just off Route 8, the kind of place that smells like burnt coffee and wet carpet, where the only other car in the lot had a shattered back window covered with duct tape and a just divorced sticker half scraped off. Seemed fitting. I reclined my seat, pulled my coat over my chest, and stared at the ceiling for what felt like hours before I passed out. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face on that stage. That soft, rehearsed smile. The calm way she dismantled my life like it was a TED Talk. When I woke up, there was condensation on the windshield and a text from my landlord. Mallory changed the locks. Said you approved it. I need confirmation before I allow it. I stared at the message like it was written in another language. My hands were shaking. Not from anger. No, that came later. But from this overwhelming mix of shame, confusion, and something darker I didn't have a word for yet. I hadn't approved anything. I didn't even know where my house keys were. I called him immediately, still hoarse from a night of not crying, but almost crying. That tight feeling in your throat like a sob is stuck somewhere in your windpipe, and you don't have the courage to push it out. Glenn, he answered. It's Mason. I snapped, voice cracking. My name is Mason. Oh, right. Sorry. Listen, man, she was pretty convincing. Had paperwork. Told me you'd be moving out by the end of the week and wanted it all done quick so it wouldn't be messy. 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 That woman just nuked my reputation in front of everyone I knew and turned my birthday into a public execution, and now she was worried about mess? I didn't approve anything, I said slowly. Do not change those locks. There was a pause. Too late. I gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. My heart was pounding now. I wasn't angry at him. He was just some guy trying not to get sued. But this was war. And I hadn't even put on armor yet. I drove straight home. My name was still on the lease. The utilities were in my name. The wedding photos hanging in the hallway? I paid for those. But none of that mattered. Not when you walk up to your front door and your own key no longer fits. I rang the bell once. No answer. I rang again, this time holding it longer. She opened the door halfway, dressed in a bathrobe like she hadn't just detonated my entire life 12 hours earlier. No makeup. Her hair tied up. She looked like a stranger. You need to stop, she said quietly. You changed the locks, I replied, staring past her into what used to be our living room. You changed the damn locks on me. Mallory exhaled, like I was the burden. You shouldn't have made me do this in public. I tried to have that conversation privately a dozen times. You ignored me. You said I was being dramatic. You humiliated me, I said, voice trembling. You brought him to my party. You had a banner ready. She didn't flinch. You had a year to tell me about Riley. That name again, like it had been written into every argument we never had. She thought Riley was the affair. She thought I'd fallen in love with some poetic barista who slipped notes into brown paper bags. But it was never about Riley. It was about her always looking for the first excuse to leave. Mallory didn't close the door. She just stepped away. And I did something I never thought I'd do. I walked inside. Crossing the threshold felt like breaking into my own life. The house smelled different. Not bad, just foreign. Cleaner, somehow. Like someone had gone through with scented wipes and erased all the fingerprints. My jacket wasn't on the hook. My shoes weren't by the bench. Even the framed drawing Mallory gave me from our first anniversary, where she'd sketched us in Central Park with those awful cartoon heads, was gone from the wall. I hadn't noticed how much of me she could remove in a single night. She disappeared upstairs without saying a word. No explanation. No questions. Just vanished like we were roommates on bad terms. I stood in the middle of the living room trying to figure out what the hell I was supposed to do next. Was I here to fight? To apologize? To get my laptop and leave like some coward who still respected boundaries she already burned to the ground? Then I noticed the couch cushions. One of them had been unzipped. Slightly. Like someone had hidden something and forgot to close it all the way. I don't know why I did it. Maybe it was instinct. Or desperation. Or some sad, masochistic part of me still hoping this was all a prank and she'd yell gotcha any second. But I pulled it open, and there it was. A small, black voice recorder. Sony. Old. Cheap. The kind you'd use in college lectures. The same kind I used to keep by my desk when I was working freelance interviews, back before I got the job at the firm. It had my initials scratched into the back in silver ink. And it had a fresh battery. I stared at it for a long time before pressing play. At first, just static, muffled shuffling. And then her voice. If you're hearing this, Mason, it means you went looking. Good. I wanted you to. My stomach dropped. I wasn't going to tell you. But then you decided to ghost me emotionally for 10 months. So congratulations. You earned this scavenger hunt. There was a pause. Some background noise. It sounded like wind chimes, maybe from the backyard. Then, you remember Darren, right? Of course you do. Couples therapy. Mister, tell me how that made you feel. You two made such a cute pair. My heart thudded. I slept with him once. Just once. Back in February. You were on that work trip, the one where you claimed the hotel forgot to give you Wi-Fi, so you couldn't call me. I told myself it was a mistake. That I was lonely. That I was just tired of feeling like a babysitter. But it didn't stop there. The next part was quieter. Almost like she leaned in. I let it go on for months. And no, it wasn't just Darren. There were others. I didn't sleep with them all, but I flirted. I needed to feel like a woman again. Not a project. Not your emotional hospice nurse. I stopped the tape. I actually dropped it. My knees hit the floor like they'd given up. I just sat there, staring at the carpet. I could still hear the echo of her voice in my head, saying words I didn't even know how to process. It wasn't just the cheating. It was the intent. She knew I'd find it. She wanted me to find it. And I hadn't even gotten to the end of the message. I looked up toward the stairs. Silent. No footsteps. No movement. She was upstairs while I sat there with her voice in my hands and her betrayal bleeding out through tinny speakers. Part of me wanted to storm up there and scream. Another part wanted to walk out and never come back. But the biggest part? It needed to know what else was on that recorder. So I picked it up again, pressed play, and kept listening. The second half of that recording was quieter, almost like she was whispering to herself. I turned the volume all the way up, knuckles tight around the tiny speaker, listening like the truth was buried in static and pauses. And then she said something that didn't just sting, it rewrote everything. You know what I realized, Mason? You were never the villain. You were never the hero either. You were just there, like a wall, always standing, always present, but never moving, never growing, never pulling me forward. And I needed more. There was a long, breathy silence. I could hear the faint tick of a clock in the background. The grandfather clock in our hallway, the one her dad gave us at our wedding and that she always said was too ugly to live. She never turned it off. I thought the affair would make me feel powerful. I thought breaking your heart in front of everyone would make me feel something, anything. But here's the truth, Mason, and you need to hear this. I did it because I knew you wouldn't stop me, because I knew you'd take it. I blinked. That's what killed me, Mason. Not what you did. Not the notes, or Riley, or your sad little Friday morning routine. It's that I knew, deep down, you wouldn't fight. You never fight. Not for yourself. Not for me. Not even for the life we were pretending to build. I stared at the floor, and my throat went dry. My chest wasn't pounding anymore. It was numb. So now I get to be the brave one. The one who left. The one who made a scene. Everyone will remember me. And you? You'll be fine. You'll write your little Reddit post, play the victim, maybe move to a smaller city, and start over with some girl who thinks you're deep because you journal. But you'll always be the man who watches life happen to him instead of doing anything about it. My thumb hovered over the stop button. But she wasn't done. You want to know something else? Darren didn't even want to keep seeing me. Not after the party. He thought it was unethical. Said I humiliated you. You know what I told him? A click. Maybe she was pacing now. I told him that was the point. I needed someone to see me burn it all down. And I needed you to watch. Because I knew if I said it to your face, you'd just nod and tell me you understood. And I couldn't take that one more time. The tape ended there. Just a soft beep. Like a monitor flatlining. I sat motionless for a long time after that. I wasn't angry. Not exactly. I wasn't even heartbroken anymore. I was vacant. She wanted me to feel small. She wanted me to feel like a character in her story. The loyal husband. The soft-spoken failure. The passive man who lets go without pushing back. But as I sat in that silent house, holding her confession like some twisted parting gift, a thought crawled up the back of my skull and settled in. She doesn't know me as well as she thinks she does. Because I am going to write. But not just to Reddit. And I am going to start over. But not alone. Because there's something she forgot in her dramatic little speech. I did text Riley back. Last week. I didn't call Riley right away. I just sat there with her name glowing on my screen, thumb hovering over the message I sent her 5 days ago. 5. Before the party. Before the mic. Before the lock change. Back when I was still pretending everything could somehow fix itself if I just held still long enough. Maybe that was always the problem. Mallory was right about one thing. I let life happen to me, like I was background noise in my own marriage. But that night, sitting on the cold hardwood floor with that recorder in my lap and her words echoing in my head like a sermon from someone who no longer believed in me, something inside me snapped. Not violently, not dramatically, just cleanly, like a thread that had been stretched for too long finally letting go. So I texted Riley again. Hey, you still mean it? About starting over? She replied 5 minutes later. Where are you? And just like that, the world cracked open. But this story isn't about Riley. Not really. She wasn't the escape plan. She wasn't the revenge. She was just the reminder that not every person in my life saw me as a burden they couldn't return. She worked the night shift at the bakery again, taking overtime so she could afford to keep her car. I met her there, back entrance, 1:12 a.m., flower on her sleeves, headphones still around her neck. She didn't ask what happened. She didn't need to. She just looked at me for a long second, then said, "You look like you haven't slept in days." I hadn't, but I said nothing. She brought me inside, gave me the little stool by the mixer, poured me a coffee from the pot the delivery guys used. Then she went back to kneading dough, quietly, like I was just part of the furniture. And for some reason, that silence, that gentleness, broke something inside me that the public humiliation never did. I started to cry. Not loud, not messy, just tears rolling down my cheeks while I stared into a paper cup, wondering how the hell I'd ended up needing refuge from my own home. She didn't rush to comfort me. She didn't hand me tissues or tell me it was going to be okay. She just kept working the dough, giving me space, letting me fall apart without asking for an explanation. And that, more than anything, reminded me of the man I used to be. But here's where things shift. Because the next morning, I woke up on Riley's couch, still wearing the same clothes, and my phone had 17 missed calls. From Mallory. No voicemail. No texts. Just a name, over and over and over again. It was only after the 18th call that she sent a message. I know what you found. Please come home. There's something I didn't put on the recording. My heart stopped. This was new. This wasn't part of her grand plan. This wasn't the elegant, staged destruction she'd orchestrated so perfectly. This was panic. I waited a full hour before I replied. What did you leave out? Her response came fast. Just come. Please. It's not about Darren. It's about why I did it all. You need to hear this from me, not a file. I stared at the screen, every instinct telling me to ignore it, to block the number, to delete the message and go back inside to Riley and her cinnamon rolls and her unspoken kindness. But I couldn't, because the woman who destroyed me had never begged for anything. And suddenly, I needed to know what was so awful, so dangerous, that she couldn't even say it out loud on a tape she thought I'd never stop listening to. So I got in the car, and I drove home. The door was already unlocked when I got there. No new banner. No dramatic entrance. No Darren in the hallway waiting for applause. Just silence, and the smell of something burning faintly from the kitchen, like she forgot she'd left a candle lit too long. Mallory sat on the edge of the couch, legs crossed, eyes red. She didn't look up right away when I entered, just stared down at her hands, fingers twisting the sleeve of that hideous navy sweater her mother gave her last Christmas, the one she swore she'd never wear. I closed the door and didn't say a word. I wasn't going to make this easy. She finally looked up. You came. You said you left something out. She nodded slowly, as if bracing herself for an impact she hadn't fully calculated. Before I tell you, she said, you need to understand something. I didn't plan all of this because I hated you, or because I was angry. I did it because I didn't know how else to make you see me. I've been drowning, Mason. And the thing about drowning is, people don't always scream. Sometimes they just go quiet and wait for someone to notice. I leaned against the wall, arms crossed. You humiliated me. You cheated on me. You recorded a confession and left it in a couch cushion like it was a damn scavenger hunt. You changed the locks. You staged a whole event just to watch me break. And you think I should feel sorry because you were quiet? She swallowed hard. It wasn't supposed to go that far. Then what was it supposed to be? Mallory stood up slowly, walked past me, and opened the hall closet. From inside, She pulled a file box, the kind you store taxes in. She brought it over, set it down on the coffee table, and opened it without a word. Inside were papers. Dozens. Medical records. Lab reports. Hospital discharge forms. Mason, she whispered. I've been sick. The room shifted. I stepped forward. What are you talking about? She slid the top sheet toward me. A diagnosis. Dated 6 months ago. Major depressive disorder. Severe, with psychotic features. I blinked. I didn't tell you, she said, her voice trembling now. I thought I was just sad. I thought it was burnout, exhaustion, pandemic fatigue, whatever trendy label people slap on pain these days. But then I started hearing things. Seeing shadows that weren't there. I'd wake up convinced someone was in the room. I'd lose hours of time. Entire afternoons vanished. She pointed to another page. A prescription. Antipsychotics. Dated the same week she started going to yoga every Tuesday night. I never cheated with Darren, she said. He was my emergency contact. He took me to the hospital when I had a breakdown in his office. He sat with me while I screamed that bugs were under my skin. He calmed me down when I tried to claw my arms open. Mason, I didn't tell you because I knew you'd look at me like this. I stood frozen, unsure if this was just another manipulation or the actual, raw core of everything. Why the party then? I asked, my voice quieter now. Her eyes brimmed with tears. Because I thought you had cheated. I found that note from Riley, and I broke. I spiraled. I stopped taking my meds. I started planning the surprise 2 weeks later. I wasn't well, and I told myself, if I can't be loved, maybe I can be seen. Maybe people will finally notice I'm breaking. I sat down, slowly, carefully, like the floor might crack beneath me. You told everyone I cheated, I said. You ruined my life, my reputation. And now you want me to just accept that this was all a breakdown? No, she said, and for the first time all night, her voice was steady. I don't want forgiveness. I just want you to know. I was sick, and I'm trying, and I hate what I did to you. But I didn't lie on that recording. I still meant most of what I said. I stared at the file box, at the months of pain I never saw, at the woman I thought I knew, now cracked wide open in front of me, equal parts liar and victim, abuser and broken girl. And for the first time since this entire nightmare began, I didn't know whether to walk away or stay. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was angry. I think I was too tired for anger. And not because I was heartbroken, either. That part had already burned itself out. What kept me awake was something much harder to name. A kind of quiet ache for the life I thought I was living and the woman I thought I loved. Not the real version of her. The broken, brilliant, selfish, scared, complicated person sitting across from me now, but the idea of her. The myth. The version I carried like armor. And letting go of that was harder than anything else. We sat in silence for a long time. She didn't try to touch me. Didn't beg. Didn't ask what I was thinking. She just let me sit with the truth, raw and ugly and human. And maybe that was the first decent thing she'd done for me in a long time. By sunrise, I stood up. She looked at me, expecting a goodbye. But instead, I said, let's get breakfast. Her eyes widened. What? One last time. No speeches. No closure. Just breakfast. We drove to the same diner where I'd parked that night after the party. Sat in the same booth where we used to plan trips we never took. Ordered the same omelets we always pretended to like. And for 30 minutes, we were just two people who had been through hell together. No accusations, no past, no future. Just coffee and eggs and silence that didn't hurt for once. When the check came, I paid it. When we walked outside, the air was warm, the sun barely rising. That's when she looked at me and whispered, "Thank you." I nodded. "You're getting help?" "I am," she said. "Every week. I'm not perfect. I don't know if I'll ever be. But I'm trying." "Good," I replied. Then that's all I needed to hear. I didn't kiss her, didn't hug her, just stood there for a moment, watching her shrink smaller in my rearview mirror as I drove away for the last time. I didn't go back to Riley's place that morning. I didn't go anywhere, really. I just parked by the lake and let the wind hit my face for a while. I opened a fresh page in my notes app, titled it Rules I'm Writing for Myself, and wrote down the first one. I will never again stay small just to make someone else feel big. 2 months later, I moved to a new city. Smaller place. New apartment. A job that didn't pay as much, but gave me peace. I joined a book club. I took a pottery class. I started waking up early, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. Riley and I stayed in touch, slowly, carefully. No big declarations. Just texts and coffee now and then, and the quiet kind of friendship that doesn't demand anything. Maybe something's there. Maybe it isn't. For once, I'm not rushing it. Mallory? She sent me a postcard last week. No return address. Just a photo of a coastline and one line scribbled on the back. I'm still trying. Hope you are too. And I am. For the first time in years, I really am.